If darkness leaves you alone, you are not a threat to it. Let me say that again, because I need you to feel the weight of these words. If darkness leaves you alone, you are not a threat to it. If the enemy of your destiny is comfortable with your existence, then something is fundamentally broken in how you're living. You see, opposition is not always a sign that you're going the wrong way. Sometimes opposition is the clearest confirmation that you're going exactly where you were designed to go. Think about it. A lion does not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. But do you know what bothers a lion? Another lion. Predators recognize predators. Greatness recognizes greatness. And darkness recognizes light. When you turn on a light in a room, the darkness doesn't sit there and have a conversation with you about whether it should leave or not. It has no choice. Light eliminates darkness by simply existing. That's your assignment. That's who you were created to be. But here's the problem. Most of you have negotiated with the darkness. You've made friends with it. You've become so comfortable in mediocrity that the enemy doesn't even see you as a threat anymore. I want to tell you something that might offend you, but I need you to hear it. Your comfort is killing you. Your safety is suffocating your purpose. You were not created to live a life so small that hell ignores you. You were designed to be so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that your very name causes panic in places you cannot see. But instead, you're living quietly. You're playing it safe. You're trying not to make too much noise. You're trying not to offend anyone. You're trying not to stand out. And while you're doing all of that, your purpose is dying inside of you. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself. When was the last time you faced real resistance? When was the last time something you believed in cost you something? When was the last time your faith made you uncomfortable? When was the last time your obedience required sacrifice? If you can't remember, then you're not walking in your purpose. You're walking in your preference. And there's a massive difference between the two. Purpose attracts opposition. Destiny attracts resistance. Greatness attracts warfare. Show me someone who has never been criticized, and I'll show you someone who has never done anything significant. Show me someone who has never been misunderstood, and I'll show you someone who has never stood for anything meaningful. Show me someone who has never been attacked, and I'll show you someone who has never been a threat to the status quo. The devil doesn't waste time on people who are not going anywhere. He doesn't invest energy into stopping people who have already stopped themselves. Why would he fight you when you're already living beneath your potential? Why would he attack you when you've already surrendered your dreams? Why would he oppose you when you've already chosen comfort over calling? I need you to understand something about the nature of your enemy. He is strategic. He is intelligent. He is calculated. He doesn't just fight anybody. He fights people who are about to break through. He fights people who are about to discover who they really are. He fights people who are about to step into their divine assignment. If he's leaving you alone, it's because he's already accomplished his mission. He's already convinced you that you're ordinary. He's already persuaded you that your dreams are too big. He's already sold you the lie that you should be grateful for the crumbs when you were designed to own the bakery. Let me tell you what happened. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that humility means playing small. You started thinking that being modest means hiding your gifts. You started confusing meekness with weakness. You started thinking that faith means sitting quietly and waiting for something to happen instead of stepping boldly into what you were created to do. Humility is not denying your power. Humility is knowing where your power comes from. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control. Faith is not passive waiting. Faith is active obedience even when you can't see the outcome. And purpose is not something you find when you're comfortable. Purpose reveals itself when you're willing to be uncomfortable. There's a reason why every great person in history faced opposition. There's a reason why every revolutionary idea was initially rejected. There's a reason why every world changer was first called crazy, because anything that threatens the system will be resisted by the system. Anything that challenges the norm will be attacked by those who benefit from the norm. Anything that introduces light will be opposed by those who profit from darkness. You want to know if you're living in your purpose? Check your enemies. You want to know if you're walking in your destiny? Check your opposition. You want to know if you're operating in your calling? Check the resistance you're facing. If everybody loves you, you're probably not saying anything meaningful. If nobody opposes you, you're probably not doing anything significant. If the enemy is silent about your existence, you're probably not a threat to his agenda. I know some of you are thinking, but I just want peace. I just want a quiet life. I don't want all this drama. And I understand that. I really do. But let me tell you something that might change your perspective. The peace you're seeking is not found in the absence of conflict. The peace you're seeking is found in the presence of purpose. There are people who live quiet, undisturbed lives and die full of regret. And there are people who live loud, disrupted lives and die full of fulfillment. Which one do you want to be? Your Creator didn't invest all of that genius, all of that talent, all of that potential into you so that you could spend your life hiding. You were not fearfully and wonderfully made so that you could live in fear and wonder if you're good enough. You were designed with intention. You were crafted with precision. You were built for a specific assignment that only you can complete. Do you know what happens when a seed stays in the bag? It stays comfortable, it stays safe, it stays intact, but it never becomes what it was created to be. A seed has to be buried. A seed has to be broken. A seed has to push through dirt and darkness before it can reach the light. And even then, the growth doesn't stop. It keeps reaching, it keeps stretching, it keeps pushing until it becomes the tree it was designed to be. But here's what I've noticed. Most people want the fruit without the burial. They want the harvest without the planting. They want the tree without the seed being broken. They want the testimony without the test. They want the crown without the cross. They want the resurrection without the crucifixion. And life doesn't work that way. Purpose doesn't work that way. Destiny doesn't work that way. Everything that matters in life comes with a price. And the bigger the calling, the higher the cost. But here's what I want you to know. The cost is always worth it. The pain is always temporary. The struggle is always seasonal. But the regret of never trying, the regret of playing it safe, the regret of living beneath your potential, that regret is permanent. I've met people at the end of their lives, and I can tell you something with absolute certainty. Nobody regrets trying and failing, but everybody regrets never trying at all. Nobody regrets the risks they took, but everybody regrets the risks they didn't take. Nobody regrets living boldly, but everybody regrets living safely. So let me ask you again. If the devil is ignoring you, what does that say about the life you're living? If darkness is comfortable with your presence, what does that say about your light? If the enemy doesn't see you as a threat, what does that say about your purpose? You were created to disturb hell and populate heaven. You were designed to disrupt darkness and release light. You were built to challenge systems and transform lives. But you can't do any of that from your comfort zone. You can't change the world from your couch. You can't fulfill your destiny from a place of fear. I want to tell you a story. There was a man who owned a factory, and he designed a machine for a specific function. This machine was engineered with precision, built with the finest materials, and programmed to perform at the highest level. But there was a problem. The machine never turned on. It sat in the warehouse, gathering dust, taking up space, never fulfilling its purpose. Now, was the machine broken? No. Was the machine defective? No. The machine was perfect, but the machine was not plugged in. It was not activated. It was not operating in the capacity for which it was designed. That's you. That's so many of you. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not inadequate. You're just not activated. You're just not plugged into your purpose. You're just not operating in the capacity for which you were designed. And as long as you stay that way, the manufacturer is frustrated, the design is wasted, and the world is deprived of what you were supposed to produce. Every single person was born with a purpose. Not some people, every person. You were not an accident. You were not a mistake. You were not a random occurrence in the universe. You were intentionally designed and strategically placed on this earth at this specific time for a specific reason. Your fingerprints are unique. Your DNA is unique. Your voice is unique. Your perspective is unique. And your assignment is unique. Nobody else can do what you were created to do the way you were created to do it. But here's the tragedy. Most people die without ever discovering their purpose. Most people spend their entire lives being somebody else. Most people live trying to fit into a mold that was never designed for them. Most people waste their gifts trying to impress people who don't even matter. Most people sacrifice their calling on the altar of other people's opinions. And while they're doing all of that, the enemy is laughing. While they're playing small, darkness is celebrating. While they're hiding their gifts, hell is having a party. Because a person who doesn't know who they are is not a threat to anyone. A person who doesn't know their purpose is easy to manipulate. A person who doesn't know their value is easy to control. But the moment you wake up, the moment you discover who you really are, the moment you step into your purpose, everything changes. The moment you decide that you will no longer live beneath your potential, warfare begins. The moment you declare that you're done playing small, opposition shows up. The moment you commit to walking in your calling, resistance appears. And that's when you know you're on the right path. That's when you know you're heading in the right direction. That's when you know you're becoming who you were created to be. Because comfort never produces champions. Safety never produces heroes. And convenience never produces legends. Let me tell you what I've learned. The most dangerous person on the planet is someone who has discovered their purpose and decided to walk in it regardless of the cost. The most powerful force in the world is someone who knows who they are and refuses to be anything else. The most unstoppable individual is someone who has made up their mind that they will die trying rather than live hiding. That's who you need to become. That's the version of yourself that the world is waiting for. That's the you that was designed before you were born. That's the you that hell is afraid of. That's the you that darkness cannot ignore. But you have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. You have to decide that you're done settling. You're done compromising. You're done negotiating with mediocrity. You're done apologizing for your gifts. You're done shrinking so that other people can feel comfortable. You're done playing small so that other people won't feel threatened. I need you to understand something about your calling. It's not about you. Yes, you have a purpose. Yes, you have an assignment, but it's bigger than you. There are people connected to your obedience. There are lives attached to your courage. There are destinies waiting on your decision. When you refuse to walk in your purpose, you're not just robbing yourself. You're robbing everyone who was supposed to benefit from your gift. Think about it like this. You're a key. Every key is designed for a specific lock. Your shape, your design, your unique configuration was created to open a door that nobody else can open. But if you never insert yourself into that lock, if you never turn, if you never unlock what you were designed to unlock, then everything behind that door stays locked. The treasure stays hidden. The solution stays concealed. The breakthrough stays blocked. And it's not because the key is broken. It's because the key refused to be used. It's because the key decided that being a key was too hard. It's because the key looked at other keys and decided that their locks looked easier. It's because the key chose comfort over calling. But here's what happens when a key finally decides to fulfill its purpose. When it inserts itself into the lock, it was designed for when it turns with confidence. When it unlocks what was meant to be unlocked, everything changes. Doors open. Possibilities appear. Miracles manifest. Not because the key is special, but because the key decided to be what it was created to be. That's your moment. That's your opportunity. That's your invitation. To stop being everything else and start being who you were designed to be. To stop trying to fit into locks you were never designed for and start opening the doors you were specifically created to unlock. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and it doesn't work out? And let me address that fear right now. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every successful person has failed multiple times. Every champion has lost multiple battles. Every master was once a disaster. The difference is that they didn't let failure define them. They let failure refine them. You know what the real failure is? Never trying. Living your entire life wondering what could have been. Dying with your music still inside of you. Leaving this earth without ever giving the world the gift you were supposed to give. That's failure. That's tragedy. That's the real loss. And let me tell you something else. You don't have to be perfect to start. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin. You don't have to know the entire path to take the first step. You just have to be willing. You just have to be available. You just have to be obedient. Because here's what I've discovered. The moment you start moving toward your purpose, provision shows up. The moment you start walking in your calling, resources appear. The moment you start operating in your assignment, connections manifest. Not because you're special, but because purpose attracts provision. Destiny attracts resources. Calling attracts favor. But none of that happens while you're sitting still. None of that happens while you're waiting for the perfect moment. None of that happens while you're making excuses. You have to move. You have to act. You have to step out in faith, even when you're afraid, even when you're uncertain, even when you don't have all the answers. I want you to think about every great story you've ever heard, every hero's journey you've ever seen, every transformation you've ever witnessed. They all have one thing in common. They all started with a decision. They all began with a choice. They all commenced with someone saying, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's faith. Not knowing how, but going anyway. Not seeing the end, but starting anyway. Not having all the resources, but stepping out anyway. That's what separates those who change the world from those who watch the world change. That's what distinguishes those who make history from those who read about history. That's what divides those who live with purpose from those who die with regret. And I'll be honest with you, the journey is not easy. The path is not smooth. The process is not comfortable. You will face criticism. You will encounter doubt. You will experience setbacks. You will have moments where you question everything. You will have days where you want to quit. You will have seasons where you wonder if it's worth it. But let me tell you what's on the other side of that struggle. Freedom, fulfillment, impact, legacy. The satisfaction of knowing that you didn't waste your life. The peace of knowing that you gave it everything you had. The joy of knowing that you became who you were created to be. There's nothing more powerful than a person who has discovered their purpose. There's nothing more beautiful than a life lived on purpose. There's nothing more satisfying than knowing that you fulfilled your assignment. And there's nothing more tragic than knowing that you had everything you needed but never used it. So I'm going to ask you one more time. If the devil is ignoring you, you are doing something wrong. If darkness is comfortable with your existence, you are living beneath your design. If the enemy doesn't see you as a threat, you're not walking in your purpose. But today can be different. Today can be the day you decide to wake up. Today can be the day you choose to rise up. Today can be the day you commit to showing up. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. Today. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for qualification. Stop waiting for validation. You already have everything you need. You were already approved before you were born. You were already equipped before you took your first breath. You were already chosen before you knew what choosing meant. The only thing standing between you and your destiny is a decision. The only thing blocking you from your purpose is fear. The only thing preventing you from your greatness is doubt. And all of those things are defeated the moment you decide to move anyway. I want to leave you with this. You are not here by accident. Your life is not a random series of events. Your existence is not meaningless. You were created with intention. You were designed with purpose. You were placed on this earth at this exact moment in history because there's something only you can do. There's a problem only you can solve. There's a message only you can deliver. There's a gift only you can give. But you have to decide to give it. You have to choose to use it. You have to commit to walking in it. And when you do, when you finally step into who you were created to be, when you finally start living the life you were designed to live, when you finally begin fulfilling the purpose you were born to fulfill, something shifts in the atmosphere. Darkness takes notice. Hell gets uncomfortable. The enemy mobilizes, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something right. You're finally becoming a threat. You're finally operating as light. You're finally walking in your calling. And that's when you know you've arrived. Not when everyone applauds you, not when everyone agrees with you, not when everyone understands you, but when opposition shows up, when resistance appears, when warfare begins, because that's the confirmation that you're no longer playing small. That's the evidence that you're no longer hiding. That's the proof that you're no longer being ignored by darkness. So welcome to the fight. Welcome to the journey. Welcome to your purpose. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. It won't be comfortable, but it will be fulfilling. It won't be safe, but it will be significant. And years from now, when you look back on your life, you won't remember the days you played it safe. You won't reminisce about the times you stayed comfortable. You won't celebrate the moments you hid your gifts. You remember the day you decided to rise. You'll celebrate the moment you chose to fight. You'll cherish the decision to walk in your purpose, because that's the day your life really began. That's the moment you stopped existing and started living. That's the decision that changed everything. Now go, step out, rise up, walk boldly, speak loudly, live fully, and become the version of yourself that darkness cannot ignore. Become the person you were created to be. Become the threat that hell is afraid of. Because when the devil ignores you, you're doing something wrong. But when darkness trembles at your presence, you're finally doing something right. You're finally living with purpose. You're finally walking in your calling. You're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. And that is when your life becomes a masterpiece. That is when your existence becomes a testimony. That is when your journey becomes a legacy. Not because you were perfect, but because you were obedient. Not because you had it all figured out, but because you were willing to start anyway. Not because you were fearless, but because you moved forward in spite of your fear. That's the life you were created to live. That's the person you were designed to be. That's the purpose you were born to fulfill. Now go and do it. The world is waiting, your destiny is calling, and your time is now. Let me tell you something else that nobody wants to hear. Your current circle might be the reason you're being ignored by darkness. The people you surround yourself with are either pushing you toward your purpose or pulling you away from it. There's no neutral ground. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me who you spend time with, and I'll show you who you're becoming. Show me who has your ear, and I'll show you where you're heading. You cannot soar with eagles if you're spending all your time with chickens. You cannot become a lion if you're running with sheep. You cannot walk in purpose if you're surrounded by people who have given up on theirs. And here's what makes this even more challenging. Sometimes the people holding you back are the people closest to you. Sometimes the voices discouraging you are the voices you trust the most. Sometimes the greatest opposition to your destiny comes from your own family, your own friends, your own community. But let me tell you what I've learned through years of watching people step into their purpose. Not everyone who started with you is supposed to finish with you. Not everyone who was there in the beginning is supposed to be there at the end. Not everyone can handle the version of you that walks in purpose. Some people loved you when you were broken because your brokenness made them feel comfortable. Some people supported you when you were small because your smallness made them feel significant. Some people celebrated you when you were confused because your confusion made them feel wise. But the moment you start to heal, the moment you start to grow, the moment you start to discover who you really are, watch how quickly some of those people change. Watch how quickly support turns into sabotage. Watch how quickly encouragement turns into criticism. Watch how quickly love turns into jealousy. Not because you change for the worse, but because you change for the better. And your growth exposed their stagnation. Your movement highlighted their stillness. Your courage revealed their fear. This is why so many people give up on their purpose. Not because the journey is too hard, but because the loneliness is too painful. They can't handle being misunderstood by the people they love. They can't bear being rejected by the people they trusted. They can't endure being criticized by the people they respected. So they shrink back. They dim their light. They abandon their calling, all to maintain relationships with people who were never supposed to go where they're going. But here's what you need to understand. Every level of your life requires a different version of you. And every version of you requires a different circle around you. The people who fit into your past might not fit into your future. The relationships that worked when you were surviving might not work when you're thriving. The friendships that made sense when you were searching might not make sense when you found your purpose. And you have to be okay with that. You have to make peace with the fact that growth costs you people. You have to accept that elevation requires separation. You have to embrace the reality that your calling might lead you away from comfortable connections and toward divine appointments. Because the people you're supposed to impact are waiting on the other side of your obedience. The lives you're supposed to touch are connected to your courage. The generation you're supposed to influence is depending on your decision to walk away from what's familiar and walk toward what's frightening. I've seen too many gifted people die with their gifts still inside them because they were more afraid of disappointing people than they were of disappointing their Creator. I've watched too many talented individuals waste their potential trying to fit into spaces they were never designed for. I've witnessed too many anointed people abandon their calling because they couldn't handle the cost of walking alone for a season. But let me tell you what happens when you finally make the decision to obey regardless of who understands. When you finally choose your purpose over people's opinions. When you finally value your calling more than your comfort, you discover that you were never really alone. You realize that the Creator who gave you the assignment also provides the grace to complete it. You learn that divine connections replace human rejections. You understand that God-ordained relationships are always better than man-made associations. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you stop trying to convince people who don't believe in you, you start attracting people who do. The moment you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you start connecting with people who get you without explanation. The moment you stop fighting for relationships that are fighting against your purpose, you start building relationships that are aligned with your destiny. This is what it means to walk in purpose. This is what it costs to live authentically. This is what it requires to become who you were created to be. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's lonely sometimes. But let me tell you what's more painful. Living your entire life as someone you're not, dying without ever expressing the real you. Leaving this earth with your voice still silent, your gifts still hidden, your purpose still unfulfilled, because at the end of your life, you won't regret the people who didn't understand you. You'll regret that you didn't have the courage to be yourself, regardless of whether they understood or not. You won't regret the relationships that ended. You'll regret that you stayed in relationships that were killing your purpose. You won't regret the loneliness you felt while pursuing your calling. You'll regret the emptiness you would have felt if you never pursued it at all. So here's my question for you. Who are you allowing to determine your destiny? Who are you giving the power to define your potential? Who are you permitting to limit your possibilities? Because I promise you, the same people who are discouraging you from stepping into your purpose are not going to be there to live with the regret when you don't. The same people who are telling you to play it safe are not going to be there to comfort you when you're dying full of dreams you never chased. The same people who are convincing you that your gifts are not good enough, are not going to be there to answer to your Creator when He asks why you buried what He gave you. You have to take responsibility for your own life. You have to own your own decisions. You have to accept that your choices today are creating your reality tomorrow. And if you keep choosing comfort over calling, safety over significance, approval over assignment, then you're going to wake up one day and realize that you've wasted years trying to please people who were never meant to be pleased by you. But if you make the decision today to walk in your purpose, regardless of who walks away, to speak your truth, regardless of who gets offended, to pursue your calling, regardless of who doesn't understand, then you're going to discover a level of freedom you never knew existed. You're going to experience a level of fulfillment that approval could never provide. You're going to access a level of power that comfort could never produce. And that's when darkness can no longer ignore you. That's when the enemy has to take notice. That's when hell realizes that you're no longer playing games. You're no longer living beneath your potential. You're no longer being who they want you to be. You're becoming who you were created to be. And that version of you is dangerous. That version of you is powerful. That version of you is unstoppable. So let me say it one final time. When the devil ignores you, you're doing something wrong. But when you make the decision to walk in purpose, when you commit to living authentically, when you choose your calling over your comfort, everything changes. Opposition shows up. Resistance appears. Warfare begins. And that's not a sign that you're going the wrong way. That's confirmation that you're finally going the right way. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your season. Stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop negotiating. Your purpose is calling. Your destiny is waiting. Your assignment is ready. And the world needs the version of you that darkness cannot ignore. Now go, become that person. Live that life. Fulfill that purpose. Because you were born for this.